G'day so-and-sos and welcome to my sewing room. My name's Kathy and it's feeling a lot like Easter. So I made us an Easter basket this week as a bit of a hint because I want lots of Easter eggs. Now this thing come together really easy. 3 pieces for the outside, 3 for the inside, and then a handle and our ears. If you didn't want to do the ears, then, optional. But I actually might stick some cotton balls on the back too for a little tail. I didn't think about that before. So yeah, really simple, easy project, and let's just get right into it. Let's get cracking. Let's have a squeeze at our supplies and our pattern pieces. So all of the pattern pieces will be in a link in the description box. So make sure you go there and you print it out. And I'll also have the measurements for the gussets and the handle there as well. So as for supplies, usual suspects: cutting mat, acrylic rulers, clips, pins, scissors, rotary cutter, snippers. I'll have my little purple thing to turn out my ears. And I've also got some glue to stick my ears on. Now, fabric pieces. I have my ears. They are so cute. I haven't interfaced these yet. So I have 4 pieces of my outer ears cut out of this minky baby soft fabric. And then 4 pieces of fusible fleece. And then I've got 2 little inner ear accent pieces. So I'm going to stitch these on before I interface, and we'll do that in a minute. And then out of my lining fabrics, I have cut 2 of my outer pieces and 1 gusset piece. And the gusset is 23.5 by 6.5, but again, that'll be in the description box. And I've interfaced all of them with a light iron-on interfacing. Then I have my handle, and my handle is 21 inches by 4 inches. And I've used fusible fleece for that one because I want it to have some form, like some structure to it, some firmness, but I want it to be kind of soft as well. Then I've got 2 of my outer pieces, and I have interfaced them with a fusible foam, and the foam is a little bit smaller than the actual fabric piece, but there is a separate pattern piece for you to cut that out if you so desire. And then I have my gusset piece for my exterior as well, and it's the same size, and I'll have to look because I'm a goldfish, 23.5 by 6.5, and I've used fusible foam for that. So the first thing we're going to do is look at our little bunny ears. Let's put his little ears together. So I've got 2 of my exterior pieces and the 2 inner ear pieces, and all of them are right side up, so pretty side facing up. Going to measure up 1.5 inches from the bottom of my exterior bunny ear and place my inner ear on top at that 1.5 inch line and just center it. And then I'm going to whack some pins in there to hold him where he needs to sit, and he doesn't move around on me. Cool. And then I'll do the other one. So 1.5 inches up from the bottom, pop him in the middle and whack some pins in. And then we'll take him over to the sewing machine and sew him on. But I'm going to use a decorative stitch to hold it on so that I cover up all those raw edges of the inner ear. Okay. I'm going to be using a decorative stitch to cover up all those raw edges as I go. So it's just sort of catching, back stitch a little bit. It's just catching both pieces of fabric as I go. So if you've got a decorative stitch on your machine, think about doing that. Or if you've got a more basic machine, then just use a zigzag stitch. And pivot, and I'll just work my way around. back stitch at the end. Cute. So there's this little ears sewn on. So I've also gone ahead and I've attached that fusible fleece to all 4 pieces now. So you can go ahead and do that. And then what we're going to do is take one of our exterior, so our backing pieces, have it right side up, get one of our inner ear pieces and place them right sides together. So pretty side to pretty side. And then I'm going to whack some clips down along both sides. Then we're going to take it over to the sewing machine and we're going to sew them together along the sides, but not along the bottom. We want to leave that bit open so that we can turn our little ears out. So I'll see you over there. So I want about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance and my stitch length is around 3.5 and I've just changed back to a regular straight stitch. So I'll do a little back stitch down the bottom there and just carefully work my way around. And at the tip of his little ear, I'll leave my needle in my work and spin him around that way. Back stitch. Do you love that automatic thread cutter? Okay, there they are sewn together. Now I'm going to cut the tip off, being careful not to get too close to my stitches, and along that top edge a little bit as well. And anywhere where you might have gone a little bit wide, just trim down your seam allowance a little bit. And then we are going to turn these little guys out. They're so cute. So just start poking them out. And then I've got my little purple thing here to poke out the very tip. Fluff everywhere. So I'm using the tip of my little purple thing just to really push out those seams as well, so they're sitting nice. Cool, they're cute. I went a little bit wonky on that one, but that's okay. Have you seen my cat's tail? I don't mind wonky animals. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just fold in these raw edges along the bottom. So I'm just sticking my fingers in and letting that fold up, whack a clip or 2 on, and then I'll take that back over and just sew up that raw edge. So cute. I'm a bunny. Let's get this handle prepped. So I've got my handle, chalk, ruler, iron, and some clips. So I'm going to place my handle right sides down in front of me, and I'm going to measure up 2 inches from the long edge and give myself a chalk line. So that would be halfway up our strap. then I'll grab my iron and I'm going to fold up the long edge to meet that chalk line and then iron it in place. Okay, what I would usually do now is fold it over again and fold in those raw edges, but I'm actually going to fold it in the other direction so that it looks like that. And I'm just going to iron just at these ends and whack a clip on there, because what I want to do is take it over and sew down these ends, and then we'll flip it out so that our raw edges are hidden within our strap. You'll see what I mean, just trust me. So those ends in, fold it over the other way and whack a clip on. I'll show you again. Like that. So it's like that. So we've folded it into the middle and then folded it towards the outside. Now we'll take it over and we're just going to sew down these edges at about 1/4 of an inch, and then we'll come back and flip it out. So just have another look and make sure you've got yours folded correctly before you sew it down. Make sure it looks like mine. Then all we're going to do is just sew along this edge at about 1/4 of an inch or so seam allowance. Little back stitch there as well. Across to the end and back stitch like that. And then I'll do the other end the same. So about 1/4 of an inch. Back stitch, we don't want it coming undone. Up to the end and back stitch again. And then we'll take it back and turn it out and clip down the edges. So there's my edges sewn down. Now I'm just going to trim off those corners just a little bit, being careful not to hit my stitches. And then I will just flip those out. So then the end of our handles won't have any raw edges. And flip that one out. Now I'm just going to give it another bit of a hit with the iron to get it all back in place where I want it to sit. And then I can clip up that long edge and we'll take it back over to the sewing machine and we'll sew down that long edge to finish off our handle. So just iron it, making sure that those sides are all nicely lined up. It's going to be nice and soft. Okay, whack some clips on there. And I'll see you back over at the machine. So I'm top stitching, so I've lengthened my stitch a little bit. So it is 4.1 and I'm going to be about 1/8 of an inch and I'm going to back stitch a little bit there at the bottom. And I'm just going to sew up this folded side because I want my handle to be a little bit funky, if that makes sense. So I want it to sort of not sit flat. I want it to have some volume to it. But if you want to sew down all 4 sides, then go ahead and do that. But I'm going to leave it like this. And then back stitch at the bottom there. Too easy. Okay, let's get started on these gussets. So I've got my 3 lining pieces. I'm going to fold my gusset in half and just mark my centers. So I'm just going to give myself a tiny little clip on each of those corners, making sure those ends are lined up nicely. And then I'll mark my centers on these pieces as well. So I'll fold them in half the longest way and just give myself a little snip, top and bottom. Just so I can find my centers easy. It's always good practice to do this really with any sewing project that you're doing, but I think especially with bag making. And just the smallest snip, we don't want it too big. Cool. Okay. Then I'm going to have one of my side panels, lay it down in front of me, and I'm going to find which is the top and the bottom. So the bottom side is the side with the more curvy curve. I'll show you. But that's a good reminder. I'll put on the pattern piece, which is the top and which is the bottom. So this is the top. The curves aren't as exaggerated. And then along the bottom, you've got the real sort of curve. I'm going to have my side panel right side up in front of me, grab my gusset and place it over the top, right sides together. So they're pretty side to pretty side, and the gusset is laying up over that side panel. I'm going to match up my snips along that bottom edge and whack a couple of clips on there. So that's what it will look like. Then I'm going to grab my scissors and I'm just going to start snipping along my gusset piece only about 1/8 of an inch up. So just the tip of my scissors and about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch apart, and just give myself some little snips. And this will help our piece curve up around that gusset, like the gusset will curve better along our side panel. English, Kathy. And while I'm here, I'm just going to do the other side as well. So I'm just creating some little snips, not too deep. And that will help it curve a bit better. Cool. Then I'm just going to start whacking some clips on. So all along that bottom edge. And then I will start folding it around that curve. And you'll see with the snips, it just helps it move around that curve a bit better. Like that. And then up along that side. And if you hold it up like I'm doing, rather than trying to do it flat on the table, it'll sort of sit up like this curve here will sit up like that, and it will be easier to clip up to the top. Now your gusset, my gusset is, oh no, it's pretty spot on. It might be a tiny bit long, and if it is, that's fine. That's what we want. It's better to be long than too short. And then the other side. And just around that curve. Don't drive yourself nuts if you can't get it to lay perfectly around that curve. It's all practice. And you just shift it around a little bit when you're over at the sewing machine too, if you need to, and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so I'll get this side clipped up, and then we'll take it over to the sewing machine and we'll sew this on at around 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So I'm going to have my work gusset side up. So this side is the gusset side. And like I said, about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. And I've shortened my stitch length back down to around 3.5. And a little back stitch. Cool. Now this is where one of these little purple things really comes in handy around these curves, because you can use it to sort of manipulate the fabric a little bit and hold it where you want it to. So you'll see. So we're coming down to one of these curves, and I look like I'm already going to get a bit of a pucker there. So I'm going to lift up my foot, smooth it out a little bit there, pop my foot back down, and then continue to work my way around like that. And that just helps you get less puckers as you go. So it's a little bit fiddly, but it's worth it and it's good practice. So I'm just going to work my way around, trying to get as few puckers as possible. Cool. So there's one side of our gusset sewn on. Now, before we do the other one, I'm going to mark my turnout hole. So I'm going to have my piece right side down in front of me with the bottom of my panel facing me. And I'm going to measure 2.5 inches in each direction from my center snip and give myself a nice big box. So I've got my turnout hole. Don't let me forget. Now I'm going to find my center snip along the bottom of this panel and the center snip on the other side of the gusset. And I'm going to place the fabrics right side together and pop some clips on there. I'll show you. Oops. So it's like that. So that's the back of my gusset. This is the inside. So my panels are now facing each other with the gusset in between. And then same thing as what we did before. I'm just going to whack a heap of clips on there, just being really careful as I go around my curves. But then when we take it back over to the sewing machine this time, we're going to leave that turnout hole. So I'm not sure what side I'm going to have it up at this machine, because I don't usually use this machine, but we'll see. But what I might do is just mark a little bit on the back of the gusset as well, so I don't forget that turnout hole, because I'm shocking for it. Okay, let's just get this all clipped up. Clips. Okay, let's take it over and sew down this side, remembering to leave our turnout hole. So I've got it gusset side up again. So this side is the gusset. So again, everything is just exactly the same as what we had it before. Same stitch length, same seam allowance. The only difference is that this time I'm going to stop at my turnout hole, and I'm going to backstitch, leave that gap, and then start again on the other side. that's our gusset done. So there's our lining piece done with our turnout hole. Okay, I'm going to pop that guy to one side, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing with my exterior pieces. So I'm going to mark on my centers. It's a little bit trickier with that foam, but we can do it. And the process is going to be exactly the same as what we did for the lining. We're just going to find our centers, clip it all together, and then add the other side, with the only difference being that we're not leaving a turnout hole. So I'll just show you the first bit again. So I'm going to have my exterior piece right side up, lay my gusset piece right sides together over the top, making sure that I've got the bottom edge, and whack some clips along that bottom bit so that I can see where my curves are going to lay. And then carefully just snip up into the gusset about 1/4 inch and about the same, sorry, 1/8 of an inch and about the same distance apart. And I'll do that on both sides and then clip along that edge and take it over to the sewing machine, and just everything will be exactly the same, except we won't be leaving a turnout hole. So let's get this bit done. More clips, and again your gusset might be a little bit longer, that's fine, we'll just trim it down when we're done. Oh, that's looking so cute. Okay, let's take that over and sew that piece together. Okay, so I've got a little bit of extra bulk there now with the foam, but everything is the same, about 1/4 inch, stitch length is the same. And I'm just going to go around exactly like I did for the lining piece, and I've got it gusset side up, but you do it whatever way feels more comfortable for you. And that's the first side all done. Let's go clip the other side. So that's the first side on. Now we're going to clip on the other side. So making sure I've got the bottom edge, I'm going to place that against the center snip to center snip, so they're right sides together. Place it against the gusset. Line up those center snips and just start whacking some clips along. Definitely getting our basket shape. Now, if you're really struggling to get clips on there and get it to hold and whatever, and you're worried it's going to move at the sewing machine, a trick you can do is to actually whack some staples in along there. But then when you're sewing, you have to be really careful not to hit them with your needle, and then you need to take them out at the end. But I did all right with the clips, so let's go and sew that side on. So this time I'm going to have the panel side up rather than the gusset side. Now, if you wanted to take the free arm off your machine and sort of curve it around, that might be easier for you, but I'm gonna stick to this way. Back stitch a little, and as I go around, it'll sort of, my whole piece will sort of sit up and move around, which will make it a little bit easier. You'll see what I mean. I might just move the camera up a little bit for you. Sorry. There we go. So you can see how my bag sort of wants to sit up now as I go around. So it's probably going to get right in the camera. And it sort of rotates on itself a little bit, which makes it a little bit easier. But this bag's nice and soft. It's not even a basket. It's nice and soft, so it's not too bad. Sorry. And back stitch up here. Too easy. There's our exterior all sewn together. Looking good. So I'm going to stick my fingers in there and just feel along all of those seams and make sure that I caught it on both sides all the way around so that I don't have any surprises later. And then I'm going to trim it down. So the first thing I'm going to do is just trim down along that gusset very carefully so it lines up with my side panels. Be very careful to cut straight. And then I'm going to just snip into my seams around those curves a little bit so that when we turn it out, it sits a little bit nicer. So we've already trimmed into our gusset, but just into the lining bit and a little bit more into the gusset just to make it sit nicer. And anywhere where it's a little bit thick, you can take it down. Cool. Now, going to turn this one right sides out, like that. And just run your fingers along those seams, double check. If it's got any gaps anywhere, just take it back over. Cool. That's cute. Okay, going to grab my handle. Okay, we're going to sew our handle on before we put our pieces together. So along one of my gusset sides, I'm going to fold that in half first to mark the center at the top of my gusset, actually, and then fold those seams together and mark the center of my gusset like that. Then I'm going to grab my ruler and I'm going to measure down 1.5 inches from that center snip and give myself a little chalk mark so I can see. So I might have to squish it all down. Squish, squish, squish. Don't worry, we can iron it out later. So measure down 1.5 inches, give myself a chalk mark on that side, and then 1.5 inches down from that center snip on that side and give myself a chalk mark. Cool. Then grab my handle and place it on that chalk mark. So the bottom of my handle is just above that chalk mark and whack some clips on there. And then same thing on that end. Make sure your handle is straight. There's no twists or curves. And whack some clips on there. And then we're going to take it back over to the sewing machine and I'm just going to stitch along the bottom of each. Now, if you wanted to, you could give yourself a little box or an X or something like that just don't come too high up because we need to fold this handle down out of the way because we've still got to put our pieces together and stitch them along the top. So I'm happy to just go 2 lines along the bottom and hold it in place, and that will be fine. Okay, do that. So I'm going to take my free arm bit away for this bit so that I can get my bag over that bit easier. And wiggle that up right down to the bottom. There. So I'm about 1/4 of an inch or so from the bottom of that strap. And I'm just going to go over and then back stitch all the way back across like that. Lift it up and then come up just 1/8 of an inch or so and do the same thing. Go all the way over and then all the way back, and that'll do me. And I'll do the other side the same. Or hold all our eggs in. So there's my handle on. Cool. Now we're going to put these 2 pieces together. So my lining piece is still wrong sides out. So it's inside out, and my basket is right side out. So I'm going to pop my basket into my lining piece and stuff it on down in there. Like that. And then I'm going to fold that handle down the best I can out of the way. And I'm going to start clipping up my seams, my side seams. So I'm going to find my side seam of my gusset on my lining and match that up with its corresponding side seam on the exterior. And do that side as well. Now it will be a tight fit, and it's meant to be a tight fit. We're going to turn it out, so it's not going to stay like that. Of course it's not going to stay like that, Catherine Ann. You know what I mean. And that one. And then broken. And then the center snips on the lining and exterior panels on each side. Match them up. Whack a clip on there, and a clip on there, and just start whacking a heap more clips all the way around. And then we'll take it over to the sewing machine and we'll sew them together at around 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, I think that should be plenty. Use as many clips as you need to, which should be a lot. Okay, take that back over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch all that down. And we're almost done. So same thing, I'm going to wrap it around that free arm bit. I'm going to start at one of my seams. Get out of the way. Scoot that under. And I'm around 1/4 of an inch, and my stitch length is still nice and short. It's around 3.1, I think it said. And back stitch. And just be careful of these seams as I go around. and just feeling for where that handle is too, making sure I'm not sewing over it. Back to the beginning, go over that seam again, little back stitch, done. Okay, so they are all put together. So just make sure that you've caught it all the way around. I'm going to stick my hand up through my turnout hole and just give it a bit of a feel. And just make sure I don't have any gaps. And of course, if you do, just take it back over and go around again. But I think, well, it's close, but I think I'm good. Yeah, cool. Okay, now I'm just going to trim down that seam allowance just a little bit, just so it's a little bit neater when I turn it out, because then we're going to turn it out, clip it up again, and then we will top stitch that seam down just to make it look pretty and reinforce it a little bit, which is always one of my favorite parts. I say every part's my favorite part, really. Okay, now turn it out. So stick my hand in through the turnout hole, grab some of that basket and just start pulling. And I'm not yanking this part through, I'm sliding that lining up over it. Yay! There's my handle. Okay, so we need to close this turnout hole. So I'm going to stick my fingers in there, fold down those edges and clip along. And then I'll take it over to the machine and just sew along there at about 1/8 of an inch. Cool. Okay, so stitch length is the same, still down around that 3.1 or whatever it was, about 1/8 of an inch. Little back stitch, and I am playing bobbin chicken. So remind me to change my bobbin before we top stitch in a minute. And I'm going to go just a little bit past where I think I need to, just to make sure. Back stitch. Oh, look, I just made it. Oh no, I didn't. I'll fix that and see you back at the table. Serve myself right. So there's my turnout hole closed. Okay, I'll get rid of some of those loose threads while I spot them. And then we're going to stuff our lining into our basket. And then I'm going to start folding this, or rolling, I should say, this seam in my fingers and whacking some clips on there to hold it in place. So I want the lining on the lining side and the exterior on the exterior side, and neither one popping up too far on the other side, if that makes sense. So just get that seam sitting nice and even. And then we're going to take it back over to the machine for the last bit. And, well, not the last bit because I have to glue the ears on, but the last bit of sewing. And we're going to top stitch all around this top edge. So we're going to remember to lengthen our stitch length, and we'll be at around 1/8 of an inch. That should about do it. Let's go do that. So lengthen my stitch length back up. 4.4 I've got it on. And I'm going to start at one of these side seams. Pop that under and I'll start right on the seam and at around 1/8 of an inch or whatever you can manage. Little back stitch. And then I'll just carefully make my way all the way around. Back to the beginning, another little back stitch. Cool. Okay, now we're going to glue our ears on, and I've just had a bit of a glue mishap, but that's okay. So I'm just going to squish some glue along the bottom quarter of my bunny ears. Get that all on there, and then it's personal preference where you want them. So I think I want them around there. Now you can measure and, you know, do all that type of thing, but I'm eyeballing it, which is so unlike me, and whack them on there. And then I'm going to hold them in place with some clips while they dry. There, and I might whack a pin along the bottom too if I can get it in there. And give them a minute, I'll be back. So there we go, my glue is setting and my ears are on, and we have lots of room in there for all of our chocolate goodies. We certainly won't be putting real eggs in there, will we? Chocolate is much cheaper these days. Well, I hope you had fun making that along with me. I had a ball, and if you haven't liked and subscribed yet, then do all that and check out my channel for some more cool content, and otherwise I'll see you next week. And remember, it's only fabric, we can always buy more, along with Easter eggs. Okay guys, have a good one, bye. Bugger.